Mike Reynolds wiped the grease from his calloused hands, staring at the clock on the wall of Johnson's auto shop in Detroit. Another 12-hour day was coming to an end, but the fatigue in his bones felt heavier than usual. At 32, he had been working as an auto mechanic for over a decade, yet financial security seemed more distant than ever. The small apartment he returned to each night barely contained his modest possessions: a worn couch, a small TV, and a refrigerator that hummed too loudly. The walls were thin enough that he could hear his neighbors' arguments, a constant reminder of the financial stress that permeated the building. His refrigerator contained little more than leftover takeout and a six-pack of cheap beer. "Another day, another dollar," Mike muttered to himself as he locked up the shop. The bitter December wind cut through his jacket as he walked to his 1998 Honda Civic. Reliable but showing every one of its 210,000 miles. The car had been giving him trouble lately. Ironic for a mechanic who spent his days fixing everyone else's vehicles. The flat-rate pay system at the shop meant some weeks were good, others barely covered his bills. Today had been particularly frustrating. A complex transmission job had taken him 3 hours longer than the book time allowed, meaning those extra hours were essentially unpaid labor. This was the reality of being a mechanic in America. Skilled work that was increasingly undervalued and misunderstood. Mike's parents had encouraged him to pursue a trade, believing it would provide stability. "People will always need their cars fixed," his father had said. What they hadn't anticipated was the changing industry, the stigma surrounding blue-collar work, the expensive tools he had to purchase himself, and the physical toll the job took on his body. As he drove home, Mike passed billboards advertising financial freedom and investment opportunities. They seemed to mock him. With barely $800 in savings and $12,000 in credit card debt, investing felt like a fantasy reserved for people born into different circumstances. At home, Mike flipped through channels before settling on a news program. The segment featured Warren Buffett discussing the recent market downturn. Something about the elderly investor's calm demeanor caught Mike's attention. While financial experts panicked, Buffett spoke with measured confidence. "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful," Buffett said on the screen. The simple phrase struck Mike like a revelation. He had always assumed wealth was built through luck or privilege, but here was someone suggesting it was about perspective and timing. That night, instead of his usual routine of TV and sleep, Mike opened his laptop and typed Warren Buffett advice into the search bar. It was a small action, but one that would ultimately change the trajectory of his life. The next morning, Mike arrived at the shop earlier than usual. His night had been spent consuming everything he could find about Warren Buffett. Interviews, articles, and quotes that revealed a philosophy far simpler than he had expected. Buffett's approach wasn't about complex financial instruments or insider knowledge. It was about patience, value, and making informed decisions. "Morning, Reynolds," grunted Frank, the shop owner, as he unlocked the front door. "You're early." "Had some things on my mind," Mike replied, already reaching for his toolbox. Throughout the day, as he worked on engines and transmissions, Mike's thoughts kept returning to what he'd learned. Buffett's emphasis on understanding what you invest in resonated with him. "Invest in what you understand," Buffett had advised. As a mechanic, Mike understood cars and the automotive industry better than most. During his lunch break, instead of joining the other mechanics at the diner across the street, Mike stayed in the break room with a notebook. He began listing automotive companies he knew well, their strengths, weaknesses, and potential for growth. This was his circle of competence, the area where his knowledge gave him an edge. That evening, Mike drove to the public library instead of going home. The librarian helped him find books about investing and personal finance. He checked out The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, Buffett's mentor, along with several other titles. The following weeks established a new routine. Work during the day, study at night. Mike cut his cable subscription, stopped ordering takeout, and tracked every dollar he spent. Buffett's advice to establish a solid spending framework became his mantra. He was determined to get his financial house in order before attempting to invest. His coworkers noticed the change. "What's with the brown bag lunches?" asked Tony, a fellow mechanic. "You used to hit the diner with us every day." "Just trying something new," Mike replied, not yet ready to share his plans. By spring, Mike had paid off $5,000 of his credit card debt and built an emergency fund of $2,000. It wasn't much, but it represented a fundamental shift in his financial habits. He had stopped living paycheck to paycheck and started thinking long-term. One Saturday afternoon, while replacing the timing belt on a Toyota Camry, Mike overheard a conversation between Frank and a customer, a local businessman named David Chen. "Electric vehicles are going to change everything," Chen was saying. "The maintenance needs will be completely different. Traditional shops will need to adapt or die." The words lingered with Mike long after Chen had left. That night, he researched the electric vehicle market and companies specializing in EV components. Buffett's advice echoed in his mind. Think value and think long-term. The transition to electric vehicles represented both a threat to his current job and a potential investment opportunity. With newfound clarity, Mike made his first investment, $500 in a company that manufactured specialized batteries for electric vehicles. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Summer turned to fall, and Mike's small investment had grown by 15%. The success, modest as it was, fueled his confidence and commitment to Buffett's principles. He continued living frugally, investing a portion of each paycheck and expanding his knowledge of both the automotive industry and financial markets. The shop was busier than ever, with a growing shortage of qualified mechanics across the country. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projected 67,800 openings for automotive technicians each year through 2033. This shortage meant more work for Mike, but also more leverage. "Frank, I need to talk to you," Mike said one Friday afternoon after the last customer had left. "What's on your mind?" Frank asked, looking up from the invoices he was reviewing. "I've been thinking about the future of auto repair. With electric vehicles gaining market share, we need to adapt. I'd like to get certified in EV maintenance and repair." Frank leaned back in his chair. "That's expensive training, Mike." "I know, I'm willing to pay for part of it myself, but I'm hoping the shop can cover some costs too. It would be an investment in the future." To Mike's surprise, Frank agreed. "You're right about EVs, and good mechanics are getting harder to find. I can't afford to lose you." The certification process took 6 months of weekend classes and late-night studying. During this time, Mike continued to follow Buffett's investment philosophy. He focused on companies within his circle of competence, looked for value where others saw only problems, and remained patient even when the market fluctuated. Mike's investment portfolio grew steadily. The battery company continued to perform well, and he had added positions in select automotive parts manufacturers and a specialized tool company whose products he used daily. By following Buffett's advice to invest in yourself, Mike had not only increased his earning potential through EV certification, but also built a portfolio aligned with his expertise. Word of Mike's EV certification spread quickly. Customers specifically requested him for their electric vehicles, and Frank raised his hourly rate. The additional income accelerated Mike's investment strategy. One evening, while working late on a particularly challenging Tesla repair, Mike received a call from David Chen, the businessman he'd overheard talking about electric vehicles months earlier. "Mike, Frank gave me your number. I hear you're the EV expert now," Chen said. "I wouldn't call myself an expert yet, but I'm learning," Mike replied modestly. "Well, I'm opening a specialized EV service center across town, and I need someone who understands both traditional mechanics and electric systems." Frank mentioned you might be interested in a change. The offer Chen presented was substantial: higher pay, better hours, and most importantly, a small equity stake in the new business. It was an opportunity that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. That night, Mike reflected on how far he had come. His debt was gone, his savings were growing, and now he had a chance to become part owner of a business positioned for the future. All because he had followed Buffett's wisdom. The best investment you can make is in yourself. The transition to Chen's EV service center, Volt and Wrench, proved to be the catalyst Mike needed. His dual expertise in traditional mechanics and electric vehicles made him invaluable to the new operation. Customers, many of them affluent early adopters of electric vehicles, appreciated his straightforward explanations and honest assessments. Within the first year, Volt and Wrench had established itself as the premier EV service center in the Detroit metro area. Mike's 5% equity stake, which had seemed like a generous bonus at the time, was now worth considerably more than his annual salary. "You've transformed this place," Chen told him during their year-end review. "I'm increasing your equity to 10%. I need you committed to our growth plan." The growth plan was ambitious, expanding to 3 locations across Michigan within 2 years. Mike would oversee all technical operations and training of new mechanics. It was a management role he had never envisioned for himself, but one that built on his strengths and experience. As his professional responsibilities grew, Mike maintained his disciplined approach to personal investing. The market had experienced significant volatility, but following Buffett's principle to be greedy when others are fearful, Mike had used market downturns as buying opportunities. His portfolio now included a diverse range of companies, though he maintained his focus on the automotive sector and related industries. Mike's investment in himself continued as well. He took courses in business management and leadership, preparing for his expanded role at Volt and Wrench. Chen became not just an employer, but a mentor, teaching Mike about business operations, capital allocation, and strategic planning. "You remind me of myself 20 years ago," Chen said one evening as they reviewed plans for the second location. "Except you understand the technical side better than I ever did." The comparison was flattering, but Mike knew his journey was unique. Chen had come from a business background with family connections and a degree from a prestigious university. Mike had built his knowledge from scratch, guided by Buffett's wisdom and his own determination. As Volt and Wrench prepared to open its second location, Mike faced a decision that would test his commitment to Buffett's principles. A large national chain offered to buy the company for a substantial sum. Chen was tempted, but Mike remembered Buffett's emphasis on long-term thinking. "This business is just getting started," Mike argued during a tense meeting with Chen and their lawyers. "Electric vehicles are still in the early adoption phase. In 5 years, our company could be worth 5 times this offer." Chen studied him for a long moment. "You're asking me to walk away from millions of dollars today for a potential payoff years from now?" "That's exactly what I'm asking," Mike replied. "Isn't that what value investing is all about? Seeing what others don't yet see?" To Mike's relief, Chen declined the offer. They would continue building the business together, positioning Volt and Wrench for the coming revolution in transportation. That night, Mike added a new quote to the collection he kept in his notebook. "Someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." Warren Buffett. He was planting his tree and he was prepared to nurture it patiently. 5 years passed and Mike's vision for Volt and Wrench had materialized beyond even his optimistic projections. The company now operated 7 locations across the Midwest, employing over 100 mechanics specially trained in EV maintenance and repair. The business had expanded beyond service to include specialized tools and diagnostic equipment designed specifically for electric vehicles. Mike's 15% equity stake in the company now represented the bulk of his wealth, a sum that would have seemed impossible to the struggling mechanic he had been just 6 years earlier. His personal investment portfolio had grown as well, providing a level of financial security he had once only dreamed about. On a crisp autumn morning, Mike stood in front of the original Volt and Wrench location, watching as the new sign was installed. After lengthy negotiations, they had agreed to a partnership with a major automotive manufacturer. The sign now read, "Volt and Wrench, official EV service partner." Chen approached, handing Mike a coffee. "Not bad for a couple of guys who started with one shop and a handful of customers." Mike nodded, thinking about the journey. I keep wondering what would have happened if I hadn't watched that Buffett interview years ago. You would have found your way eventually, Chen said. People like you always do. But Mike wasn't so sure. He remembered the hopelessness he had felt, the crushing weight of debt, and the sense that financial security was for other people. Buffett's wisdom had provided not just practical guidance, but something more valuable. The belief that with patience, discipline, and the right principles, anyone could build wealth. Later that day, Mike visited Johnson's auto shop, where his journey had begun. Frank was still there, though he had cut back his hours and was talking about retirement. "Look at you, Mr. Big Shot," Frank joked as Mike entered. "Too important to get your hands dirty these days." Mike laughed. "Never. Just came by to see if you've thought more about my offer." The offer was to buy the shop and transform it into a training center for mechanics transitioning from traditional to electric vehicle repair. It would address the growing shortage of qualified technicians, while providing opportunities for people like his younger self. "I'm ready to sell," Frank said, his tone turning serious. "But I want to make sure my guys are taken care of." "They will be," Mike assured him. "They'll have the chance to learn new skills and be part of something growing, not shrinking." As they shook hands on the deal, Mike felt a sense of completion. He had not only transformed his own life, but was now creating opportunities for others facing the same challenges he had overcome. That evening, Mike sat in his home office, a far cry from the small apartment where his journey had begun. On his desk sat a framed quote from Warren Buffett. "The best investment you can make is in yourself." Beside it was a photo of the original Volt and Wrench team on opening day. Mike opened his laptop and began typing an email to the community college where he had taken his first business courses. He was establishing a scholarship for mechanics seeking to expand their skills and knowledge. The scholarship would cover tuition, books, and tools, removing the barriers that had made his own journey so challenging. He titled the scholarship the Buffett Principle, in honor of the wisdom that had guided him from debt to prosperity. It would be his way of planting trees for future generations to sit under, extending the legacy of patience, value, and long-term thinking that had transformed his life. As he finished the email, Mike reflected on the most important lesson he had learned. True wealth wasn't measured just in dollars, but in the ability to create opportunity for yourself and for others. By following Buffett's principles, he had built not just a fortune, but a legacy that would continue growing long after today's investments had matured. Life rarely follows a straight path to success. Mike's journey from a grease-stained mechanic to a business owner and investor reminds us that transformation often begins with a single moment of inspiration, a chance encounter with wisdom that resonates deep within us. What makes Mike's story so powerful isn't just the financial success he achieved, but the inner transformation that accompanied it. He didn't simply apply Buffett's investment principles, he embodied them in every aspect of his life. Patience when progress seemed slow, courage when opportunities appeared, and wisdom to distinguish between the two. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of Mike's journey is that it's accessible to all of us. We may not all become wealthy entrepreneurs, but we each have the capacity to plant seeds today that will grow into the shade we'll rest under tomorrow. Whether those seeds are investments, education, relationships, or acts of kindness, they all follow the same principle. Consistent, thoughtful actions compound over time. In a world that celebrates overnight success and instant gratification, Mike's story stands as a testament to the quiet power of persistence. His legacy isn't measured merely in dollars, but in lives changed, opportunities created, and wisdom passed forward. As you reflect on your own journey, remember that your greatest investment will always be in yourself, in your knowledge, your skills, and your character. And like Mike, you may find that the returns on that investment far exceed anything you could have imagined. Has Mike's story resonated with you? Perhaps you've had your own moment of clarity that changed your life's direction, or maybe you're still waiting for that spark. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your journey or what wisdom has shaped your path. If you found value in this story, consider subscribing to our channel for more inspiring narratives of transformation and practical wisdom. Each week, we explore the principles that guide ordinary people to extraordinary lives. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change your perspective. Thank you for taking the time to join us for Mike's Journey. Your presence and engagement mean the world to us. After all, stories only come alive when shared with others who understand their meaning.